The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is May 29th, 2019, episode 141, and this week, official UFOs are real. My name's Basil.
And this is Gonz. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about other news with Canary Cry views.
That's right, and Gonz, to kick us off, I've got another Roomba update, baby.
There's your Roomba.
That's not far from how it actually sounds. So just to catch everybody up, no Flippy update this week, but I've been trying to keep everybody posted on my journey through having a robot butler. The first one died a screeching, horrible, screaming death. The company, Shark Ion, or Shark, I don't know what they do, is not an actual Roomba, Shark Ion. They so graciously offered to just replace the unit for free, and they did it. And now this one's screaming at me like a banshee as well. So I really can't recommend this product for people who have cats. It seems like the motor that runs the brush, the vacuum brush, what I think is happening is it's just working too hard and it's going out. And after about 5 or 10 uses, it just turns into the worst possible sound to have automatically going off during your day. So I don't know. I'm going to see if they replace it one more time and maybe change its schedule. See what happens.
Awesome.
Is that a sewing machine?
Maybe.
What is the title of that sound effect you're doing?
Meow.
Oh, see, that's what it sounds more like.
Yep. Very good update.
Thank you. I'm just trying to keep everybody posted on which robots to let into their home.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there are other robots doing pretty impressive things. This is CNET. Whatever. CNET.com. A robot dog pulled a 3-ton plane, and we're not scared at all. Seriously, we should stop kicking the robots.
This isn't a good story.
What do you mean it's not a good story? And why are you covering your face?
Tell people about your robot dog.
Okay, feats
pulling
of strength.
a measly 3-ton plane.
Okay, feats of strength never get old, and they are always freaky. Just over a month after a pack of Spot Mini robot dogs managed to pull a huge truck, researchers with the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia tested the strength of a different robot dog, the Hi-Q Reel. The Hi-Q Reel pulled a 3-ton Piaggio P180 Avanti passenger airplane almost 33 feet. Last week at Geneva Airport in Italy, researchers said Thursday in a statement. Huh?
I'm surprised you didn't ding 33 feet.
Oh, I was trying to they're 33 feet.
There it is.
We can agree that 3 tons is a lot. The videos of people kicking over robot dogs and watching them get back up now seem like a terrible idea. But Basil, I was pretty impressed. Why were you not impressed?
Okay, first of all, to let people in on this video, we'll post the video. You can take a look at it. The first 2.5 minutes of the video is completely nothing. The first 60 seconds, the first minute is just shots of the robot in a dark room. And then it takes another 1.5 minutes of just like pensive looking engineers hooking up the robot to a plane.
You have a problem with the production of the video, not so much the dog actually pulling the plane.
I have a problem because the plane is tiny and Russians have been pulling huger planes for decades. This is
Russians?
not impressive at all.
The entire country of Russia, or are you talking about individuals?
No, okay, so here's the thing. You search strongman pull plane good. And there are like dozens of videos of human beings pulling planes that are literally 100 times bigger than the plane that this robot dog pulled. You know what? In the battle between robots and human beings is looking up, because if this is the best the robot dog can do, I know some guy named Dimitri who can out pull a plane than this robot dog. This Indian guy pulled like a 747 with his hair. And I've just, for fun, I've posted all the links. The links will be in the show notes.
Yeah,
and this is where the battle's over, folks. I'm no longer even afraid of these robots. First, they can't even vacuum my apartment. They scream. And now they think they're so cool for pulling a plane. Man, I've added these YouTube videos just to my like daily wake up routine, just to get pumped for the humans.
The giant Viking-esque humans.
My boy Dimitri and my boy what's an Indian name? Man, I need to know more Indian names. Kumail. We'll call him Kumail.
Okay.
Okay, so there you go. So,
all
folks, rest easy tonight.
Okay, well, just to counter your humans pulling giant 747s, there are videos that will also be included in the links of dogs pulling some weight, pulling heavy weight, giant slab of bricks, a Jeep. So, when in the dog world, you got to have
You're talking about meat dogs.
Like meat dogs, real dogs, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you got to put it in context. For a dog to pull a 3-ton airplane, it hasn't happened yet. So in the world of dog, this is a super machine.
Yeah. Well, don't worry, folks. Big strong man beat robot dog.
For now.
Until
things change.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We got to keep moving here.
Okay.
We have a story here. It's actually 3 things in one, three stories in one, so to speak.
Okay.
So it's a story about DNA.
'Cause I'm DNA.
And also this thing we call space.
Galactic clear essentially indicates
Oh, there's tons of other solar systems.
Space. Wanna go to space?
No, because what they're doing up there is some CRISPR.
CRISPR. Cas9.
Is that the new CRISPR jingle?
I think so.
Yeah, that's fun. This is like an 80s commercial.
Yeah.
Or 90s commercial.
1986.
Oh, okay. I was close.
Yeah.
Was
All
that
right.
for a cereal?
It is for a cereal.
Okay.
Which will remain nameless.
Crispy.
Something crispy.
Whatever it is, we know it's crispy.
We know it's crispy. ScienceAlert.com. For the first time, DNA has been edited with CRISPR in space.
Ooh.
Humans may not be able to burp properly in space, but we can now edit a genome. For the first time, astronauts aboard the International Space Station have used CRISPR-Cas9 to edit the DNA of brewer's yeast. The goal wasn't to create super space yeast. At least that's what they tell us. The astronauts were studying how DNA repair mechanisms work in space, so they snipped through strands of the fungus's genetic code in a number of places to mimic radiation damage. Quote, "The damage actually happens on the space station, and the analysis also happens in space," says Emily Gleason of Mini PCR Bio, the company that designed the DNA lab aboard the ISS. Quote, "We want to understand if DNA repair methods are different in space than on Earth. Space is actually a pretty hazardous place, and radiation is one of the biggest concerns. Although it at its average altitude of 408 kilometers or 253 miles, the ISS is still protected by Earth's magnetic field. In 6 months abroad or on board, on average, the astronauts are subjected to around 30 times the radiation a human receives in a year on Earth. It's well documented that space radiation puts ISS astronauts at risk for radiation sickness, as well as raising long-term risk for cancer, degenerative diseases, and central nervous system problems, probably because we're not supposed to be up there anyway. For a mission to Mars, which would be a lot longer than 6 months spent outside Earth's protective bubble, the radiation hazard increases. So figuring out how DNA repairs itself from radiation damage could be incredibly useful. Hence the ISS crew's experiment. They employed the power of CRISPR-Cas9, a hot gene editing tech that lets scientists slice into DNA code with the equivalent of a molecular scalpel. The idea for this experiment was first proposed by students David Lee, Arthi Vijayakumar, Rebecca Lee, and Michelle Sung as part of NASA's Genes in Space contest. The goal of their experimental design was to introduce breaks into both DNA strands of the yeast Saccharomyces cerevisiae, I don't know, to imitate potential radiation damage to the organism. Aboard I keep messing up that word. Aboard the space station, NASA astronauts Christina Koch and Nick Hague carried out the experiment, successfully editing the genome. Then the yeast was left to repair the damage done to its DNA. Comparing the molecular structure of the yeast's DNA before and after this damage repair cycle would allow scientists to observe if there were any changes in the molecular structure, indicating whether the DNA repair introduced any genetic errors. To run these comparisons, the repaired DNA was occupied multiple times using a process called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, in the mini PCR thermal cycler machine. Then a second device called the Minion was used to sequence the DNA. The results are yet to be reported in a published paper, but for now, it joins the exciting list of genetic tools that can be used in space, including gene sequencing, which was first promoted or performed in 2016, PCR also in 2016, and RNA sequencing, a milestone reached last year. Quote, "One thing the investigation will tell us is yes, we can do these things in space," Gleason said. Quote, "Ultimately, we can use this knowledge to help protect astronauts from DNA damage caused by cosmic radiation on long voyages and to enable genome editing in space." My whole thing goes back to, I don't think we're supposed to be up there.
My thing is why? I guess we're talking about long-term human survival in space. I guess if we demand gene editing,
that's a good argument that can be placed upon the world. Yeah.
But again, at the end here, ultimately, we can use this knowledge to help protect astronauts from DNA damage caused by cosmic radiation on long voyages, and to enable genome editing in space. First of all, why? Second of all, again, it's just another little clue as to how did we land on the moon going through the Van Allen belts without melting our astronauts.
Yeah, well, the other part of it too is it seems like there's no clear jurisdiction in terms of like what you're allowed to do in space.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because you're not really tied to any land government.
You could avoid government restrictions on human cloning and embryo modification by doing it in space.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a perfect segue into like all the ET conversations there, because maybe we tried to do it again, or do it last time, or do it in the ancient past, and that's what created the aliens of now. The aliens, quote unquote, right?
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Just to go back to the first sentence of this article talking about how you can't burp in space. Mm-hmm. I clicked on the link and learned a lot about burping in space. And apparently it's impossible because you just vomit. And same goes for gas coming out the other side. So
it doesn't happen because it just does the two?
Everything mixes together.
Oh.
Because there's no gravity. Yeah.
Because we're not supposed to be there.
So we, for no other reason, we're not supposed to be there.
Like, kind of like how we're not like meant to be in water, like deep in the ocean, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey,
it's just so obvious to me.
We have our zone. We need to stay in our lane. Yeah. And so anyways, when we think of astronauts, we're supposed to think of these super cool spacemen, but really they're just gross.
They're just vomiting and
they're just really
nasty.
Gross. Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to think if I had anything else to say about that. I don't think I did, but that's an interesting thing to follow. Speaking of following very interesting things in the mainstream,
You don't know what you're looking at.
What's driving that thing? It's not a space alien.
Aliens. It's unidentified.
Okay, so this is a very interesting development as we track the sort of mainstream ideas about UFOs and ETs. We specifically chose this article from the WashingtonPost.com. So, I mean, this is about as mainstream as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
UFOs exist, and everyone needs to adjust to that fact.
Whoa.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, don't get too excited, but there's definitely something here. The term UFO automatically triggers derisions in most quarters of polite society. One of Christopher Buckley's better satires, Little Green Men, is premised on a George F. Will type pundit, thinking that he has been abducted by aliens with amusing results. UFOs have historically been associated with crackpot ideas like Bigfoot or conspiracy theories involving crop circles.
Hey now.
The obvious reason for this is that the term UFO is usually assumed to be a synonym for extraterrestrial life. If you think about it, this is odd. UFO literally stands for unidentified flying object. A UFO is not necessarily an alien from another planet. It is simply a flying object that cannot be explained away through conventional means. Because UFOs are usually brought up only to crack jokes, however, they have been dismissed for decades. One of the gutsiest, so they start out immediately here kind of pandering to the usual
skeptic.
Yeah, the usual skeptic, the rational thing. Like, okay, we can still call them UFOs. Doesn't mean they're, it just means they're unidentified. Kind of like Neil deGrasse Tyson in our jingle.
Right.
One of the gutsiest working paper presentations I have witnessed was Alexander Wendt and Raymond Duval presenting a draft version of Sovereignty and the UFO. In that paper, eventually published in the journal Political Theory, Wendt and Duval argued that state sovereignty, as we understand it, is anthropocentric, or constituted and organized by reference to human beings alone. Yeah. They argued that the real reason UFOs have been dismissed is because of the existential challenge that they pose for a worldview in which human beings are the most technologically advanced life forms. This is a block quote from the paper. UFOs have never been systematically investigated by science or the state because it is assumed to be known that none are extraterrestrial. Yet, in fact, this is not known, which makes the UFO taboo puzzling given the ET possibility. The puzzle is explained by the functional imperatives of anthropocentric sovereignty, which cannot decide a UFO exception to anthropocentrism while preserving the ability to make such a decision. The UFO can be known only by not asking what it is. When Wendt and Duval made this argument, there were a lot of titters in the audience. I chuckled too. Nonetheless, their paper makes a persuasive case that UFOs certainly exist, even if they are not necessarily ETs. For them, the key is that no official authority takes seriously the idea that UFOs can be extraterrestrials. As they note, quote, considerable work goes into ignoring UFOs, constituting them as objects only of ridicule and scorn. I think that's a very poignant sentence. In recent years, however, there has been a subtle shift that poses some interesting questions for their argument. For one thing, discussion of actual UFOs has been the topic of some serious mainstream media coverage. There was the December 2017 New York Times story by Helen Cooper, Ralph Blumenthal, and Leslie Keane about the Defense Department's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. I think we visited that when that story came out too, which was tasked with cataloging UFOs recorded by military pilots. Department of Defense officials confirmed its existence, though this story generated some justified skepticism. It represented the first time the U.S. government acknowledged the existence of such a program. Then there were the reports last November about Oumuamua, a mysterious cigar-shaped interstellar object that fell through our solar system at an extraordinary speed. according to New York's Eric Levitz. Oumuamou's shape and trajectory were unusual enough for some genuine astrophysicists to publish a paper suggesting the possibility that it was an artificial construction relying on a solar sail. Again, this prompted skeptical reactions, but even those skeptics could not completely rule out the possibility that extraterrestrial activity was involved. Then, on Monday, the New York Times came out with another story by the same reporters who broke the 2017 story. Block, quote, "The strange objects, one of them like a spinning top moving against the wind, appeared almost daily of the summer of 2014 to March 2015, high in the skies over the East Coast. Navy pilots reported to their superiors that the objects had no visible engine or infrared exhaust plumes, but that they could reach 30,000 feet and hypersonic speeds. These things would be out there all day," said Lieutenant Ryan Graves, an FA-18 Super Hornet pilot who has been with the Navy for 10 years. And who reported his sightings to the Pentagon and Congress. "Keeping an aircraft in the air requires a significant amount of energy. With the speeds we observed, 12 hours in the air is 11 hours longer than we'd expect." No one in the Defense Department is saying that the objects were extraterrestrial, and experts emphasize that earthly explanations can generally be found for such incidences. Lieutenant Graves and 4 other Navy pilots who said the interviews with the New York Times that they saw the objects in 2014 and 2015 in training maneuvers from Virginia to Florida off the aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt make no assertions of their provenance. The Times reporters broke new ground by getting pilots on record. What is interesting about this latest news cycle, however, is that the DoD officials are not behaving as Wendt and Duvall would predict. Indeed, Politico's Brian Bender reported last month that the U.S. Navy is drafting new guidelines for pilots and other personnel to report encounters with unidentified aircraft, a significant new step in creating a formal process to collect and analyze the unexplained sightings and destigmatize them. My Post colleague, Deanna Paul, followed up by reporting that Luis Elizondo, a former senior intelligence officer, told the Post that the new Navy guidelines formalize the reporting process, facilitating data-driven analysis while removing the stigma from talking about UFOs, calling it the single greatest decision the Navy has made in decades. What appears to be happening is that the official organs of the state are now acknowledging that UFOs exist, even if they are not literally using the term. They are doing so because enough pilots are reporting UFOs and near-air collisions so as to warrant better record keeping. They are not saying that these UFOs are extraterrestrials, but they are trying to destigmatize the reporting of a UFO. And here's the kicker. Still, the very fact that this step has been taken somewhat weakens the Wendt and Duvall thesis. This was always a two-step process. A, acknowledge that UFOs exist, and B, consider that the UFOs might be ETs. In recent years, the U.S. national security bureaucracy has met the first criterion. What happens to our understanding of the universe if great powers meet that second one? Dun, dun, dun.
Boom.
Yes. So here's the thing. That may not sound like the most exciting, the most sensational report on UFOs and ETs, but coming from the Washington Post, and Gons, you said this before we even found this article, which is there's been a huge amount of reporting in the mainstream surrounding UFOs. And I think that this kind of sums it up a little bit. The Navy, which we reported on last year, coming out with a new reporting system for reporting UFOs. And these pilots, there are so many pilots reporting strange objects in the sky that they just couldn't, I think we personally don't think the government has ever been fully ignoring them. They just never... I think they've been trying to figure out their strategy on how to
their PR mechanism to roll out to the masses.
To disclose, yeah.
The disclosure.
And this is a very soft step towards that, even just acknowledging that they're true. Now, of course, our listeners and ourselves and people like us, we've seen the undisclosed documents. We've seen even some of the classified documents that have leaked out that have showed that government agencies are consistently paying attention to UFOs throughout the decades. Maybe even close to 100 years now. And now we're getting to the point where they're just now able to publicly say, okay, yes, we're paying attention. But the paper that these guys wrote that seems to be influencing a lot of this attention, they obviously want to push for the ET sort of idea.
Yeah.
But you can't do that as real scientists, or else you become a not real scientist, unfortunately. Right. But laying out the two criterion for getting to that ET logistical ending of that, the first criterion has been met. Just recognizing that UFOs do exist and you can't ignore it anymore. Now, before we get all the emails and the comments, yes, we are aware of all the theories of UFOs, okay? We're not here to make any hard claims as the ET nature of these. Obviously, we have spent most of our time working on exploring the actual nature of what we might, or the general public might, consider extraterrestrials, and so we're not here to make any firm claims on that, but we're getting there.
Yeah, well, I think this kind of temperament that's being pushed out there, especially in the mainstream, are we going to see some kind of Roswell event of the 21st century, where some kind of crash?
It is about time.
Well, because if you think about, because we the CRISPR thing, right?
CRISPR. Cas9.
In space, the thing we just reported on, you get a couple of astronauts that, the testing goes haywire. They become these aliens. You stick them in a craft, you have them crash, and there you go. You got your republic.
Whoa.
You know what I mean?
Whoa, yeah, that is quite the called shot there. I like it. Well, even more than this, if you have something crash and maybe they don't find a body of an alien, but they find a yeast-like substance that is alien to our planet. No genetic match on our planet for this kind of yeast.
Right.
So it could totally be a setup.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, we just figured it out. The whole deception. There it is.
Boom. Wow. Look at that. We just figured that out live on air. Good job, Gons.
All right. Well, we have, we do have a Nephilim update.
Nephilim update.
The show Supernatural, we've brought it up several times, but, it really does create just the most ridiculous lines and things in articles, mostly, pop culture type of articles. This one, nerdsandbeyond.com. Ever heard of nerdsandbeyond.com, Basil?
Nope.
Yep, me neither. Happy birthday, Jack Klein. 20 things we love about Jack from Supernatural for his second birthday.
Second birthday?
Yeah. And the first line of this article is, Nephilim grow up fast, don't they? 2 years ago, we met Jack, son of Lucifer, and Kelly Klein. And yeah, there you go. You have your Nephilim.
Thanks, Kelly and Lucifer.
Kelly and Lucifer for giving us Nephilim.
Nephilim update.
They grow up so fast.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, everybody, remember, we have extended report coming out today as well. We're going to be exploring how to delete your Google when you die. We're actually going to go through a little step-by-step there. As we know, Google, your search histories, your emails, your everything, your purchases, all the data they have on you is going to last long after you pass away. And maybe you're the type of person who is a little bit wary of that. So we have a step-by-step on how to get all your Google files deleted when you pass away. We're also going to be talking about a 2,000-year-old Bacchus marblehead found. That's the god Bacchus. So there's some interesting connections there, especially now that we're talking about UFOs. And let's see. Oh my gosh, yes, we're going to talk about moon dust. Oh, I can't. I'm torn to give it away or not. But we're going to be doing some 3D printing on the moon to build the bases, and that's going to be very fun to talk about and explore as well. But hey, if you got friends who are not listening to Canary Cry News Talk, find an episode you like, send it to them. Just gently shake their hand and say, "Have I got a show for you?"
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages. I tried to tell you.
That's right. We tried to tell you. Get your buddies listening to this show, because you know what? They're not going to hear the breakdown anywhere else, folks. Also, that's it. Remember the ER. You can find it at patreon.com. Patreon.com/CCNT. We are fully listener funded. We do not sell ads. We do not believe in selling your attention for our personal gain. So you can go there for the price of coffee once a month. You can support a couple of podcasters and get bonus episodes every single week. There's a ton of bonus episodes there waiting for you. So we've had some people complain that they've run out of material, and you got about, I don't know, probably at least 100 hours waiting there for you at patreon.com/CCNT. Okay, folks, thanks again for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time, but until then, think outside the cage. Wow.